Hey, a few weeks ago, I gave a presentation at a symposium that was a lot of fun to participate in about healing as an act of rebellion. But I was nervous and didn't really stick to what I had prepared to say. So I was kind of all over the place during that presentation. I haven't spoken in public in a long time. I used to do it for a living. So I'm still getting used to this. So I wanted to give the presentation, the talk that I had originally planned. You know, the Tower in the tarot is frequently considered to be a scary card. There's a lot of cards that are considered to be scary, like the Devil, just about any swords card, and the Tower card. But no tarot cards are really inherently negative. Personally, I think they're all inherently positive, just the way you look at things. Like death is a symbol of transformation. If you pull the death card, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to die. The Tower card is a symbol of upheaval, of change. And a lot of times that seems scary, but if the situation that you're living in is shit, then it needs to change. Like, when I started fighting my mental health and started going on the path of healing, decided I didn't want to be in this fucked up state of mind anymore. Part of that process was removing myself from situations that were negative to my mental health, getting myself out of bad relationships, bad situations. That's change. So we are living in a time of great change. And sure, it's not always fun. It's chaotic. It's not necessarily the most safe and comfortable thing in the world to live in a time of great change. That's actually a Chinese curse, is may you live in interesting times, or so the stories say. But it's needed. The system that we have right now is shit. The system is systematically designed to create trauma. America is a trauma machine. That is what it is designed to do. And a lot of times, liberals try to go about, we have this attitude. I'm more of a leftist than a liberal, but I was a liberal for a long time. And we have this attitude that if only we can get the politicians to read this book or to watch this documentary, then they will understand that we're not doing things the right way. Do you think that they don't know? Do you think the politicians and the people who run the United States don't know that there's better ways to do prisons and education and just about every fucking thing, internal infrastructure, social services programs, housing, that many healthcare. Many countries on earth are doing these things way better than we are. And it's not like the people who are running the country live in a box. They are interacting with other world leaders. A lot of the research done on how to do things better was paid for by the United States government. They know. Let's just take one thing, education. Like, I had a very difficult time in school, as many of you did. I excelled academically in school because I had very high IQ. However, I am also on the spectrum and I have ADHD. So in all other ways, school was extremely difficult for me. And it was frustrating. I mean, I started dealing with depression when I was 12. And school was a big part of that. Not the whole thing. My family life was fucked up too. Then later on, I taught school for a little bit. And I saw just how intensely frustrating the system is. It's all politics. And dealing with the school administration and even with the parents is a nightmare. You can't hardly teach. So I didn't teach for very long. Then later on, in the military. I was in training in the later half of my military career, and I liked it so much that I went and got a degree in it. And so I find all these different ways that the training world, the corporate training world, is doing things almost exactly like the military. And when I asked one of my professors about that, they were like, absolutely. The military paid for the psychological research that created like the best way to do training around World War I, World War II, when we needed to take a vast number of Americans who lived on farms and introduce them to a technology they had never seen before. Like your great grandfather, your grandfather, great grandfather did not live in a city, probably lived in the country in a small town or out in the middle of nowhere. Maybe didn't even have a car. And then all of a sudden is sent to France and is working on tanks or repairing airplanes or flying airplanes, and all this technology that is like, whoa, the technology advancement happened very rapidly. And so they had to take people who did not know anything about technology and train them very fast. And then there was also the training that needed to be done with the people who stayed at home, mostly women, who were working in factories to make these tanks and planes and bullets and bombs and shit. This is so the American government, the military, paid for psychological research on how to train people in a very short amount of time. And a lot of this is where like Maslow, the mechanistic view of psychology, that is the foundational view of psychology still today in America, is put a quarter in, get a piece of candy out. Basically, is behavioralism of looking at human beings as just animals to train to change behavior. So we know how to train people, we know how to educate people, and we know how to do it very well. The government paid for that research, millions and millions and millions of dollars of research 70, 80 years ago. And so why don't this part of the government over here that knows this go over to this part of the government over here, the public education system, and say, hey guys, we're doing it all wrong? Because we are. What I learned in school in training is 100% different than what we do in school. And in fact, they would say the worst way to train somebody is to sit them in a class, in a seat, and stare at you talking at them for 8 hours a day. We did very little of that in the military. There is still some of that. There has to be some lecture, but most of it is doing. Because the education system isn't designed to educate you. Historically, the education system was designed to also take a illiterate population that did not know anything about technology and train them to work in factories. It was to create a basic working class. There's historical documentation that they said they don't want to educate people too much, because that's not good for the ruling class. It never has been throughout the history of the world. A free society is an educated society. And it's not in their best interest that everybody knows philosophy, critical thinking, current events, history. God, fuck, we don't want people to know history. The education system is designed to get you to go to work a job, and that's it. And we've known this for a while. Like, why do so many college, so why do so many high school graduates have such a hard time going to college in America, but people from other countries can come from high school and go to our colleges right away? Because their education system has been transformed to prepare children for college. Our education system is still designed to prepare workers for the working class. Everybody knows this. This is not a conspiracy. This is all documented. Why don't we change it? Because we don't want to. What is important in America is not that we improve the quality of life. It's that we keep this, what people call capitalism machine, running. Now, it's not capitalism. I don't know what the fuck it is. But I've read of Wealth of Nations, and John Adams said that the working class should have enough money to pay their bills and then some, have a little bit of luxury. That's how you keep the working class happy, so they work harder, so that the business owners can keep generating, making shit to sell to other people. And the working class also needs money so they can buy the shit that's being made. That's how capitalism is supposed to run. Capitalism is not supposed to be such a penny-pinching, miserly system that all the money goes to the top wealthy and nobody else gets anything. That's not capitalism. I have no idea what economic system we're operating under, but it's definitely not capitalism. So for everybody out there saying, well, socialism is the devil, we don't have capitalism now. We haven't had capitalism for quite a while. And there are already elements of socialism in America that have been for quite a long time. The reason why we keep having these arguments, and it's difficult just to have an argument when other people don't even know the definition of socialism and don't even know what capitalism really is. They're over here screaming about capitalism, but they don't really truly know what it is. Why? Because the education system is fucked. They don't want the average American citizen to understand what capitalism is, to understand they're being fucked over, to understand that they are a working class that is not free. They don't want us to know that. It's even people like me saying these videos, like the American government feels confident in letting people make videos and write books that are anti-government, because they know that, most people have it too good to worry about it. You go home, you can go to Walmart and you can watch football on the weekend, and most people are satisfied with that. They're not worried about all the shit going on out there because it doesn't affect them personally. So this system is designed to traumatize you. The education system is designed to traumatize you enough to be a worker bee for the rest of your life. We know that it is trauma to sit a child in a chair and have them stare at a teacher for 6 hours a day and not be able to move, not be able to talk, not be able to go to the bathroom. That children are not even treated as adults. They're treated as things. They're treated as workers. They're treated as employees. Go ask the boss if you can go to the bathroom. And so we're expected to endure this ridiculous behavior in the workplace because we're trained to do that in school. In America is so traumatized, that we don't even have a clear definition of trauma, a clear idea of what trauma is. We think that getting into a car wreck is trauma, when in reality, getting into the car is trauma. Your body is not designed, it is traumatic to your body to drive for more than 20 minutes a day. That's been proven by research. Hurts your back, hurts your legs, but body position is not, the ergonomics are all off. It's stressful. Driving is stressful. You have to pay attention to so much shit. The longer you drive, the more you get tired, the more you're likely to get into a wreck. All of this is known. All of the studies, mostly paid for by the fucking government. Any study that you see that comes from a college, and most studies come from a college, those colleges are part of the public education system that is paid for by your tax dollars as under the umbrella of the United States of America. Do corporations give money? Absolutely. To the colleges that belong to the government. So it's all like, it's not like it's a fucking secret, but we just don't care. As long as the money machine it keeps going. That's what's important. That's all that the big cheeses care about. So we're not even we're not even registering the trauma. Everybody in America is traumatized. If you're sitting here, if you live in America, you're traumatized. Like I said, just going to school and having to sit down, telling a 6 year old child to sit still and stare at the teacher and not talk for 6 hours a day, that's traumatizing. We think traumatizing is like slapping a child, and that is, but a trauma is also just not allowing a child to be a child. And it's all to mold us into a working class. And it works brilliantly. Has been working for quite a long time. But the link, why am I talking about trauma? Because the more that research we do, the more we find out that trauma is linked to mental health. Personally, I think that's rather obvious. That's not something that needs to be studied or wondered about. It's pretty obvious that trauma causes mental health issues. Now, whether you're talking about trauma of getting hit in the head or trauma of the chemicals in your head being fucked up because you went through something and the genetic switches in your mind, you got the alarms going off because you're experiencing trauma. And so genes aren't something that are permanently in you, like this is your genetic makeup and it is that way your whole life. Genes are like little tiny switches. If you've ever worked with electronics, there's these little tiny switches in old electronics that you would switch them to tune into things, like you would just turn a radio dial. And trauma flips switches. ADHD is caused by trauma. And it's funny because several studies have stated that, but the general world of psychology still doesn't want to accept that as a fact. A lot of parents get upset about that. They say, "What, you're telling me I traumatized your child?" No, I'm telling you that America is designed to traumatize you and your child. Taking a baby away from its mother as soon as it's born, like they do in many hospitals still to this day, is traumatizing to that child. The child needs to be held by the parent immediately and needs to be held as much as possible. But a lot of hospitals still pull the child away and sometimes still take it to another room, sometimes for a couple hours, to whatever they do, clean it, weigh it, do all the kinds of tests on it, and then bring it back to its mother. We know, research has shown that causes trauma, but policy doesn't change. You've been trained right off the bat, literally as soon as you're born. And just that much trauma may be enough to give you ADHD for the rest of your life. But we do know clearly that ADHD is caused by trauma because they've been doing more studies into adult onset ADHD. And they found out that the adults who have adult onset ADHD are much more likely to also have PTSD. And they state that and then don't make the obvious connection that ADHD is caused by PTSD is caused by trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder. I wonder what ADHD is caused by. And it makes sense because for my fellow ADHD sufferers out there, what does ADHD do? You're always on edge. You're always looking around. You can't pay attention because you're always on high alert. So, if this system is designed to create trauma, and trauma creates mental health issues, is there any wonder that there is a mental health pandemic in America today that still not a lot of people are talking about? During the pandemic, it was very obvious to me when the Karen phenomenon began that is a mental health issue. People do not go and start screaming at strangers unless they have some shit going on that they need to resolve. But we don't phrase it that way, ever. we always phrase it as this person is a maniac. Police brutality. It is obvious to me that if a police is so scared and so angry and so out of control of themselves that they will shoot somebody, beat somebody to death, choke somebody. Is it okay if you do that? Is it okay if I do that? If I did that, then I would be a criminal. I would be a murderer. So this job, or something about this job, something about this career, something about their training perhaps, is so traumatizing that these people are so ready and able to do violence. In the military, you're trained to do violence because most people are not able to do violence. It's not something that most of us just go around doing. You have to be trained to be violent. Most of us. That's obviously a mental health issue. The whole system is traumatizing, and the whole system is designed to be that way. You know, there's the story of Baba Yaga. I was talking to one of my partners the other day about it because we were joking about how they fucked it up in the John Wick movie, calling John Wick Baba Yaga and saying that meant the boogeyman. And I love the John Wick movies, but we were joking about that, and then we realized we didn't even know the story of Baba Yaga, so we looked it up. And Baba Yaga lives in a hut. And if you go out into the hut, out in the woods, middle of nowhere, there's a hut on chicken legs. And you knock on Baba Yaga's gate, and she says, "Why do you come? Of your own free will or by compulsion?" If you say, "By my own free will," you die. If you say, "By compulsion," you also die. The correct answer is 75% of my own free will and 65% by compulsion. That doesn't seem to make sense. But Baba Yaga is telling us that the binary that is presented to us of you must have this way, that way leads to death, or you must have this way, that way leads to death. We are stuck in a binary system in America that is an illusion, and neither binary has the answer. Whether you want to talk about left, right, Republican, Democrat, conservative or liberal, whatever words you want to use, we're in this locked battle between this side versus that side, and all we do is hate and fight and yell and scream at each other, and both sides lead to death. The answer is different. The answer doesn't always make sense. The answer is in between. The in between is the place of the weird. It's the place of the wise and of the witches. The in between is where answers don't always make sense, but they're always the right answer. There's a different way of doing things. There's a different way of thinking. The system that we live in is created by other people. It is an illusion. We can change it at any time. However, we also have to realize that the system is not trying to change. We're not going to change the system, and the system is not going to save us. So we have to think of other ways of doing things, other ways of living, other ways of helping each other out. The system is not going to heal us. We must heal ourselves. Transversely, the system is never going to change permanently. We're going to be stuck in this tug of war indefinitely until we love our way out of it. Until enough people refuse to participate in the trauma and heal themselves and heal their ancestral trauma, and then therefore help their children heal, help their friends, their neighbors, their lovers heal, And we refuse to participate in this system until we raise children who are so untraumatized that they will change the system. That is the only fucking way to win. Screaming at people that they're wrong, that they're stupid, that they're dumb. Does that work for you? When someone comes up to you and screams at you and calls you a queer or a libby or a libtard or whatever fucking words that they use for us, do you automatically, oh, you're right, I am wrong, I'm gonna go join the Republican Party in the most conservative Christian church I can find now because somebody screamed at me and told me I was wrong? It doesn't matter how off the wall the other side seems because of the out there things that they say. Being angry does not work in your house, it doesn't work on your job, and it doesn't work with complete strangers. We must reach out in love. It is the only fucking way that will work. Now, by love, I don't mean total acceptance. Remember, Mother Gaia loves you and will snuff you out like a fucking candle any goddamn time she feels like it. Love does not mean being a pushover. Love does not mean being weak. Love does not mean laying down. Love does mean sitting down, questioning, listening, talking, communicating, healing, helping. That's what love means. Love suffereth long and is kind. We are not being kind by screaming. You know what's the biggest thing recently that has started to change people's minds is the Barbie movie. I fucking love it. I've seen it twice. I'm going to see it at least a couple more times in the theaters. It's amazing. And it is the matrix of mental health. There are so many layers of mental health in that movie. It's so much symbolism. It's not just about fuck men and women are great. If you think that's what it is, you've missed the entire point of the movie. And that movie has done more to change people's minds than anything I've seen. And it's funny. It's entertainment. It is not a slap upside the head. And are still people getting upset? Yes. Because, again, scientifically, the worst way to try to convince somebody that they're wrong is to come out and tell them that they're wrong. So the movie is a little direct sometimes, so it still pisses people off. But other people are starting to like, oh, wow, that's great. That's how you change people's minds. Through music, songs, conversations, books, cartoons, anything and everything. Create love. Heal. Transform that trauma into loving art, loving words, loving actions, and send it back out there into the universe. It is the only way to permanently change the system. Somebody once asked Carl Jung if he thought we were going to have nuclear war. And he said, I think it depends on how many people can stand the tension of the opposites in themselves. Stand the tension of the opposites in themselves. Remember I said, Baba Yaga, you're given choice A or choice B. You have to choose, but if you choose either one, you die. The choice is neither and both. The choice is I have to love the light side of myself and the dark side of myself. I have to love the light side of society and the dark side of society. I have to hold good and evil. We have to give up this fucking lie that it's order versus chaos, right versus wrong, left versus right, good versus evil. All of those things are a myth. It is all the unity in the whole of loving all of you and loving all of your neighbors and loving everybody and everybody loving you back. That's the way, only way to kill. We want a future where you can be yourself and you can live in love and you can be comfortable and safe to express yourself and express your love however you desire to. That's the future that we're working for, right? Not a perfect future. Just a future where everybody can be themselves. Everybody can be accepted. Nobody is being denied. Nobody is being removed or left out or abused or punished. Everybody's fucking equal. For real. The advertisement of America becomes true. That's what we're looking for, right? Well, you get how you practice. How you play is how you practice. If that's the future that we want, are we going to scream our way to a better future? Are we going to yell our way towards kindness? That's like, as the joke goes, fucking for virginity, you know? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Healing is not just an act of rebellion. Healing is the only act of rebellion that is going to win the war. Only love can conquer hate. It's the only way out. And creating communities. There are already people doing it, but not enough. Community needs to be everywhere. And I don't mean community like what I said. The government's not going to save us. We're not going to save the government, and the government's not going to save us. We need to start relying on each other. For us to rely on each other, we have to start looking at each other as people, as friends. It is us versus them, not us, you versus your neighbor, who is a different religion or a different political party that you are. That's about as important as what fucking football team you like. Who gives a shit? It's nice to talk about it, but it should not be something that you choose to hate somebody over. The reality is it's us, you and your neighbors versus them, the government and the rich fucks. That's the reality. That's what we're dealing with. But you have been psychologically programmed to think that the government really, really, really wants to listen to you and do what you want. They're really trying. But the problem is, you see, I can't because those other guys won't let me. And those other guys are whoever you're not, because the Republicans think the other guys are you, and you think the other guys are the Republicans. Reality is we're all getting fucked. Your neighbor is not the problem. And your neighbor is never going to change their mind by you fucking screaming at them. Whether that neighbor lives directly across the street from you or that neighbor is somebody you interact with on the internet. Healing ourselves, healing our friends, healing our neighbors, healing as community is the only way out of this fucking mess. And it's not an easy way. I love you all, and blessed be.